It was autumn when I moved into the apartment. Ground floor of an old building, brick walls, 5 units. Inside, the floorboards creaked. Outside, the plaster crumbled like dried bark. The street was quiet, just 3 blocks from the city center, yet so tucked away that even during the day, you hardly heard a thing. The courtyard was overgrown, the facade mottled like aged skin, and by the front door still hung a faded sign bearing the name of a long-defunct construction company that had apparently once renovated the building. I was grateful for the place. It was cheap, practically a miracle in this city. The previous tenant, according to the property manager, had been an elderly woman who'd moved into a care home for health reasons. They needed someone fast. It all sounded plausible. The smell in the stairwell, a blend of lavender, old oil, and damp plaster, spoke of years of quiet solitude. I furnished the place modestly, a bed, a desk, a bookshelf. I didn't need more. I'd been through enough lately, and was just glad to have a new beginning. The basement felt strange from the start. During the move-in, the manager handed me a key, almost as an afterthought. A rusty old skeleton key that squealed in the heavy door leading down to the cellar. The hallway below was long and low. Thick heating pipes along the ceiling. Bare bulbs and wire cages that had to be switched on one by one with dangling cords. On each side were storage units. Simple wooden slats. Some in better shape than others. Mine was in the back left corner. The door was slightly warped, but could be locked. And then there was the door at the very end of the hall. It stood out immediately. Dark metal, heavy, no visible lock, no number. Unlike all the other doors, it was flush with the wall, no frame, almost as if it belonged to another building entirely. I might have overlooked it if it hadn't felt so wrong, out of place. At first, I assumed it led to some old utility shaft or maintenance room, but the actual boiler room was across the hall, secured with a coded lock. One time, standing in front of the strange door again, I tried the handle. It didn't budge, no rattle, no give, as if the door wasn't a real entrance at all, more like something not meant to be opened from the outside. I let it go at first. I had other things on my mind. Work, the move, settling into a new rhythm. The cellar was just a practical space. Tools, boxes, my old bike. But the more often I went down there, the more that door seemed to draw me in. I started pausing in front of it every time I passed, like a child staring at a locked drawer they're not allowed to open, without knowing why. Then it got worse, especially at night. It was about 2 months after I'd moved in when I first heard the sound. I'd gone to bed late, just before 2, when a low rumbling noise came from the kitchen. Not a bang, not a crash, more like a drawn-out scraping, as if something heavy were being dragged across concrete, slowly, steadily. I froze. It was muffled, like it came from below, from the basement. The floor didn't shake, but the sound seemed to travel through the pipes, through the radiators, through the old walls. I stepped into the hallway, barefoot, leaving the lights off. The stairwell was silent, but from the cellar came the faintest whisper of air, barely noticeable, yet unmistakably damp, musty and cold. I opened the door downstairs cautiously. Silence. No footsteps, no lights. The dragging sound had stopped. I could have left it at that. But I took a few steps down, just to the first bend in the stairwell, and that's when I smelled it. Sweet and heavy. Something organic. Not mold, more like hot meat or crushed bananas. A smell that felt disturbingly familiar, without reason. I stopped. My heartbeat picked up. Then I heard a second noise, clear and close, a soft tapping. 2 steps, pause, 2 more steps, closer, not loud, not thudding, like someone walking in socks, quietly, not trying to avoid detection, more like someone who belonged down there. Panic gripped me. I ran back up to my apartment, locked the door, bolted it. I stayed awake for hours afterward. Told myself it had to be the plumbing, or a neighbor, or some animal, something harmless. I didn't want ghosts. I didn't have time for hallucinations. By morning, the smell was gone. A few days later, I mentioned the basement to the neighbor above me, a retired electrician who'd lived there since the 80s. I brought up the door at the end of the hall, casually. His reaction was evasive. Said it had always been there. Probably something to do with the old infrastructure. Maybe a pump room back in the day. No one really remembered. Nobody went in. Nobody had a key. When I asked if he'd ever heard noises, he just stared at me for a long moment, then changed the subject. That's when I decided to document it. I set up a small camera, an old smartphone rigged to a motion detector, and hid it inside a cardboard box on the top shelf of my storage unit. From there, it had a clear view of the door at the end of the corridor. I left it running overnight, checked the footage in the mornings. Nothing. For days. Then came the night of December 13th. I'd worked late and gone to bed around 1. The camera recorded movement at 3:42 a.m. I watched the footage the next morning. At first, nothing. Just the dim cone of infrared light, the hallway in black and white. Then, slowly, the door opened. Not far, 10, maybe 15 centimeters, but it moved. No creak, no jolt, just a smooth, silent glide. Beyond it, darkness, no light, no figure. But the camera caught a shadow on the floor for just a moment. Not a person, more like a bent shape. Too short for an adult, too narrow for an animal. Then the door closed again. Silently, I froze. Do you keep something like that? Go to the police? I could hardly believe what I'd seen. I copied the file to a USB stick and locked it in my desk drawer. Left the camera where it was. I was too afraid to touch it again. The next day, it was gone. I went down to check. The box was still there, empty. No phone, no cable. The shelf had been shifted slightly, and on the floor in front of it was a long, dark scrape, as if something heavy had been dragged across it. The light at the end of the hallway flickered, and that smell was back, sweet and cloying, like trash bins in the summer heat. I told no one, not the manager, not the neighbors. I knew no one would believe me. 3 weeks later, I woke up in the middle of the night. My bedroom is directly above the basement room. I know that from the old floor plans and the rental documents. It was just after 3. Silent. No wind, no traffic. Then the floor beneath my bed began to tremble. Just faintly, but unmistakably, as if someone below was hitting the ceiling. Slowly, methodically. 3 knocks. Pause. 3 more. I didn't move. I lay there frozen until morning. Since then, I avoid the basement. I don't store anything there anymore. Hauled the washing machine upstairs with great effort. Never set up another camera. But sometimes, I still hear it. A hum, a tapping, a dragging sound. And sometimes, late at night, I feel the air in the hallway grow thick, heavy, sweet, like a breath you don't recognize. I don't know what's behind that door. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe it's something that lives down there, hidden, forgotten. Something no one's supposed to see. Or something waiting to be found.